Hello, everyone, and welcome.
Or welcome back
to the Wizarding World Legacy Podcast,
where we discuss the magic of the Wizarding World's past, present, and future.
We're your hosts, Eric
and Jasmine.
And over the past couple weeks, we've been hearing a bit more news from the upcoming HBO Harry Potter television franchise. And things have been trickling out more like a downpouring, if you will, over the last few days.
It is raining awesome spoilers.
If you want to experience the entire TV show unspoiled, this is going to give some of that away. And I say that because unlike previous pictures and stuff like that we've shared, we actually get some actors interacting with one another in one of these. So, eyes averted, and if they're not, we assume you want to see what's going on. To start, why don't we start with a bit of leaked footage to whet our Potter palates.
We've seen some footage. There is no confirmation of who is in said footage, but what it appears is that it may in fact be Lily and James Potter.
And there's a lot of pretty reliable Harry Potter leakers and whatnot.
Yeah. Harry Potter leakers.
Hey, I told you. It's a downpour.
Don't refer to me like that, please.
Well, we're not the leakers. We are the disseminators of news. Yep. So we're going to share some of the footage with you guys here. And what we are told that we are being shown is tentatively James and Lily fighting off some Death Eaters or some Dark Wizards.
Right. And it does seem pretty reliable. It looks like them. Others online are very much saying this is them. So we're feeling pretty confident.
Pretty confident. There's also some people online who are sort of commenting on this footage and saying, well, I don't want them adding stuff to the story. We shouldn't see James and Lily fighting off Dark Wizards. Which I don't think anything is being added. I don't think that interpretation is quite accurate. What we could be seeing is some of the world building and character development that we have been asking for endlessly.
Oh, are we getting at that whole show don't tell dilemma?
I think we are.
Because if they're talked about, you don't just want to talk.
Yes. So
I'm seeing it.
Something like a flashback, perhaps, of things that they were involved in, like the First Wizarding War, and that could be told from the perspective of Hagrid. He could be...
Oh, like when they're in the Leaky Cauldron?
Yes, and he's given Harry all the information about his parents.
Dang!
So this could be just a visual of what he's talking to Harry about. Likewise, there's the consideration that if they're casting James and Lily for any aspect of the first movie, because you're right, we don't actually see them on screen in the films, and it's not alluded to in any sort of visual depiction in the books.
Right.
Until the Mirror of Erised, which is later in this book. But the problem that arises is that they're going to look a certain way in the mirror because they're dead.
Oh, that's true. And so they definitely would have been cast for the first movie because they're in the Mirror of Erised.
Yeah.
And so that they're not going to age.
They could be filming additional scenes that come in later movies now.
Oh, wait, but does Harry have to age?
So Harry doesn't need to age in order for them to film James and Lily scenes, even if they're interacting. If anybody here has watched the show Wednesday, they might have seen that the guy who played Doc Brown in Back to the Future played one of the professors, but he only played a talking head. He was a head in a jar or a glass, like fishbowl, basically. And he was like reanimated or kept alive through duplicitous means. The challenge of putting somebody's head in water. I've always wanted to use that word. The challenge of filming somebody's head in a jug of water is, obviously you need the rest of the body. They can't breathe. He's talking, and you can hear him talking, which doesn't really work in water. And then lighting, right? If you're going to light somebody and their face is in water and there's bubbles, that's a challenge. So what they did is they actually did 3D environment /3D virtual capture. And so the actual guy who played Doc Brown is in like this gray, it looks like gray pajamas, like a onesie. It's super funny to see this old guy in like a gray kind of
super flattering,
flimsy one. Yeah, super. And he's got this little sort of headband that tracks his head, and he's got all these dots all over it so that his whole performance can be captured. And then there's cameras, I would say 360 degrees of cameras, but it's really everywhere. It's like it's a volumetric capture of him, not of the world he's in. So this is almost the inverse of like virtual production when they're filming the environment. Mm-hmm. They're filming the character to then put in it.
Got you.
And so they light him really flat so that he's like, there's not specific shadows from any specific direction.
Oh.
So that can be done in post.
When you light someone really flat, are you just like flooding them with light?
Not flooding them with light in the sense of like they would be overexposed. You're making it so that every aspect of their face is lit very evenly.
Okay.
So for example, if you take this shot right here, I have gone through the painstaking process of making sure that there is a pseudo Rembrandt style lighting and that there's a contrast between one side and the other of our faces. So this side is my shadow side. Traditionally in film, the shadow side is closer to the camera because you want to do a far side key. So all of that lighting, all those elements are really dictated by the scene he's in.
Got you.
And so if he's like walking by a window, he's going to light.
Oh, yeah.
If he's talking to a student and they come in front of the window, that's going to cast some shadow on him. So all of that can be done in post. Likewise, you could technically do 3D capture of James and Lily for scenes where it's not just them as like a flashback and they're being superimposed.
I suppose for, like, I'm thinking of where I see them. You see Harry fighting Voldemort and they come out of his wand.
Right.
That, they're definitely not, like, in the scene touching Harry. They're, like, ghosts.
So you could literally have a 3D capture of them and their performance. That's what's so cool about this is you're actually capturing everything. Their facial movements, everything.
You think it's weird that they can't feed off of the other actors? Like, they won't be able to feed off of Harry?
But you can. That's the cool thing about the 3D capture is that because they're in an environment, they can be given visual cues while they're working. So they can actually have somebody standing over there going like, oh no, Mom, don't do that. You know?
Oh, so someone can like pretend to be Harry.
Yeah.
Because I was thinking like we don't know exactly how tall Harry's going to be, but
it doesn't matter because that won't be the real Harry on screen. All they're taking from that is the actor themselves in their performance. And so when they relight everything, it's relighting off the actual facial mapping from their real face. All their muscle movements, everything is captured. So really, really cool. I mean, technology's come, leaps and bounds from where it was when they made the Harry Potter films, and they had already done that. Like James and Lily weren't physically there for those scenes either.
Right. Wait, they did that in the movies? They shot everything at once?
No, they didn't shoot everything at once. At least I don't believe so. But what I'm saying is they were superimposed later.
Right, especially for the ghost one.
Yeah.
They were definitely superimposed.
But that solves a couple dilemmas. One, now you have everything having to do with their facial features and what they look like at that age, so that if something has to be redone to a degree, you already have like a 3D representation of them. And two, if you need their performances, you can still use the original model, but retract their facial movements in their performance and then blend the two together. So that you still have the same age representation.
That's crazy.
Yeah, there's a lot you can do with that. So again, like because technology's come so far, there are things that they can do now that have nothing to do with these movies, but will hold up to the end of the movies to be able to be used then for like insert scenes and stuff.
And I think it's kind of funny because technology has come so far. You would think that some of the like prop work and effects work would be pretty tech savvy on site. But from what I'm seeing here, it kind of looks like
old school pyrotechnic.
Yeah. It kind of looks like they're dragging fireworks along.
And that's true because despite how far advancements in CGI and AI and everything else have come, the director and I think lead cinematographer have said they really want to employ as much practical effects as possible. One of the challenges with practical effects is it just inherently takes longer because say you're blowing something up. Well, if you blow something up for real, there's going to be stuff scattered all over the environment and you're going to have to go back, depending on how much you see that piece of the environment, you're going to have to go back, clean that up and reset the set. And that takes a lot of time. So with kids, there's an element of impracticality with that because you're on such a time crunch.
Why would you do that then? Why would you want to go practical?
Because it looks so much better on film. It gets rid of that whole uncanny valley aspect of it because when you see things that are CGI, your brain goes, wait, that's like, it's very real, but it's not really real, and so it throws you off.
Yeah, those make me uncomfortable. I've seen them.
Well, think about like the broom scenes during the flying lesson. They actually had kids on brooms that were like on mechanical arms and stuff, but for certain ones, like when Neville's getting hoisted around, everyone rags on this. There's like this 3D, dummy that's dangling and stuff like that. And it's just like, it looks so bad. If
I
you
feel like the
freeze frame it, it looks
Quidditch
so
games look terrible.
Oh yeah, especially now. It was not as bad back then because the resolution of our TVs wasn't as good. Now that our TVs are 4K and every little pixel is so clean, it looks horrible. Like you can really see all the flaws.
That's crazy. I didn't even think about, like, yes, the camera and the technology to make the movies has upgraded, but our ability to view said movies and
Yeah.
said shows has also drastically upgraded.
Because they shot on film, and film resolution is actually incredibly high. Like, film resolution is more than 4K. In many cases, it's more than 8K. But the medium by which it was being delivered wasn't that high. And so that's why they can go back and remaster it and actually, like, it looks super, super clean still. It's because they shot on Panavision film, which they still shoot on today. The problem is, again, shooting on film has limitations in terms of, like, certain films have to be used for certain exposures and certain amount of light, because you're physically exposing film.
So it's just like a little more complicated.
It's more, there's like way more planning and forethought that has to go into it.
Gotcha.
And you have a little bit less control after the fact. Whereas with digital, if you shoot in RAW, you can manipulate the image so much after the fact and kind of save things that would have otherwise had to be reshot.
What kind of drive do you think they need for this stuff?
Oh, like hard drive space? Oh my God, they need like tetrabytes of space. It's
Just
incredible.
Millions and millions of tetrabytes. It's fine.
Anyways, the blending of technologies there is really what they're going to utilize. So there is going to be, CGI, there is going to be VFX and stuff. But the best VFX are the ones that you don't notice because they're so minimally utilized and so subtly employed.
Right.
And blended with real effects.
Okay.
And that doesn't mean things have to be like exploding in front of little kids. Like, that doesn't have to happen, but they can record actual explosions even in the set when the kids aren't there, and then do the whole film with the kids there, or the whole scene with the kids there, and then superimpose the two over each other. And instead of an actual explosion, it's just an air gun going, and the director going, bang, And they did that in some of the first films.
Yeah,
too.
absolutely. They're not doing film for this one, right?
I don't believe they're going to shoot on film for this, but I'm not sure. They haven't really talked about that yet. I know that they were talking about it being like really colorful and vibrant and stuff, which some people don't love that idea of it being too overly colorful, and some people liked how there was like this kind of dark and gritty element to the previous films. Of course, there's people who have the complete opposite perspective where they're like, no, the vibrant and colorful kind of makes it seem more magical.
I very much would like the Muggle world to feel drab and for us to shift into the very bright and colorful.
I find myself to be a bit in both camps, though.
Okay.
One of the things I praised the first couple films for was I thought they were a bit more colorful.
Right. Oh, absolutely. The 1 and 2 specifically.
Yeah, were very vibrant, and it's like, it felt magical.
Right. That's why they're Christmas movies.
But the subsequent films, and there was kind of a whole color theory used for this about Voldemort's darkening, as well as the theme of the darkening. As Voldemort lost more and more of his soul, his outfit kind of got paler and paler, and he got like...
Because he was like a stark black in the beginning.
Yes. And then the films also started to get more like washed out and stuff because we're getting into darker and darker themes, and things were taking a more serious and somber undertone throughout the films.
That's cool.
So I liked the visual depiction of the emotion in the films. With that said, I still think keeping it kind of like alive and vibrant and keeping this contrast between the Wizarding and Muggle worlds, like you're talking about, would be great. Like this drab, humdrum Muggle world, and like this, everything's so colorful. Like,
right. I think that it's...
see later.
But I feel like you have like the Muggle world, and I want it to stay drab. But then as the films get darker, seeing the Wizarding world go from that bright world to the more like drab. Almost to the drab, but like it almost reflects the Muggle world. Because I can imagine like what makes it so bright are like the decorations.
With that said, the 80s are also like a kind of vibrant. 80s and 90s are kind of like a vibrant time. And for colors like tritones and all that kind of stuff.
Oh, yeah.
So it'll be hard to make the Muggle world look too drab.
No, actually.
The big complaint that people had with the sort of gray washing of the movies as they continued on was it's very heavy-handed. Again, I find myself in both camps. I get both sides. I like the visual depiction of sort of like the oppression that's going on. But if you're going to do that, I think there still needs to be pockets of vibrancy.
Right.
Think of like Luna, for example.
Oh, yes.
And when you go to Luna's house, when they're looking for her and they're going to talk to Xenophilius, their house should be vibrant. And the original plum should be like, that shouldn't be whitewashed like the rest of it.
It was so whitewashed. Wow, that's...
Elements of it should still be like, all right, this is very magical, and it really stands out that way.
Yeah.
So we're kind of getting a little bit off topic.
We love tangents.
But I do think that we may see certain elements of the films done out of order in terms of filming. And so like people who are like man on the street kind of like getting snippets of people walking around or acting, we're going to see some stuff that doesn't necessarily make sense chronologically speaking.
Right.
And that's okay. I do think for sure you can explain this fitting into the first films as flashback moments, though.
It makes total sense.
And if I'm remembering the whole first book correctly, there's a couple of moments where Harry's parents are talked about to him. I don't think Dumbledore gets too much into it at the end of the movies. He does talk about them a little bit with Harry. But he's kind of saving a lot of what he has to say for later because he thinks Harry's too young to hear some of it.
Right.
So most of it's going to come from Hagrid, I think. What's the thing that stood out to you in terms of like what would be the problem with like having your actors now and seeing them on screen now, given the purported time frame of this show?
Well, the show's going to take like 10 years to film.
Yeah. So like the last season, they're going to be
like 20 now, right? They're
Yeah,
like
so
2021.
They died
James
at
and
like
Lily?
20 or 21. Yeah.
So they're going to be 2021. So if you had, we never do, but if you had, no, actually, no, they've cast age-wise pretty well. But if you had someone who was 20 or 21 now,
If you had
10
anyone
years
from
now,
20 to 20, like 4 or 5.
Regardless, 10
Yeah.
years from now, you're aging from part of your 20s to your 30s.
That looked significantly different between ages 25 and 35.
Yeah, when I first met you,
I had no grays at all. And my face just looked very different.
I also looked very different when I was 20 versus I'm 28 now. So
Yeah, it would be very noticeable. So again, I think like that 10-year span that they're saying and the fact that they're ghosts that
Right.
wouldn't age, they're going to have to shoot some stuff now or employ that other technique that we talked about and superimpose them. Most of the scenes we see them, they are ghosts.
yeah,
So that would be like an easy fix. But
I definitely don't think they're detouring from the actual book.
I think the other thing that made people think they were adding stuff was like, it's 10 years, not 7 years. There's 7 books to correspond with 7 years. But it's going to span across 10 calendar years.
We're talking about filming years, not Harry Potter years, right?
Well, I don't know.
Like not 1997 to, or whenever Harry first starts. Is it 1991?
1991, yeah. So I don't know if they're saying like we're going to see 10 years of their life. I don't think that's what they're saying. I think they're saying the TV show is going to be on TV for 10 years.
Right.
Which you automatically have to add 1 or 2 years to the anticipated timeline for sort of the start and stop of the season, right? Like they're going to start the season in 1 calendar year and it's going to span probably into the next calendar year.
For sure.
That's 2 years. The next one will still start that year, but on the last one, you're going to have that overlap too. So that's 2 extra years
We're
right
talking
there.
anywhere from 10 to 12 years.
No. It's going to be 10 years. But what I'm saying is if you're talking about it, 10 years being too long because it's only 7 books and they must be adding to the books. No, not necessarily. I think inherently you're going to span over 9 years.
Understood.
Because the first year will be 2 years. The last year will span over 2 years.
There will be 7 seasons, but those seasons will be shown over 10 years?
That's what they're saying.
Got it. Guys, I got it.
Well, I shouldn't say that.
Okay, maybe I didn't get it.
They've just said that's 10 years. I presume it's still going to be 7 seasons.
Okay.
Split over 10 years, but 7 seasons could innately split over 9 anyway, evenly.
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah, so the 10-year, just might be because one comes out in 2 parts. We've seen that with, I know. I don't want to see that, but HBO has a track record of doing that. Stars has a track record of doing that. How many seasons of Outlander have they done that with now? They're like this?
At least 2.
Yeah, they could do that. I don't know. I don't want them to do that, but I do want it to continue. So,
Forever. Actually.
Yeah.
Honestly, I think that's what these kids should do for the rest of their life.
They probably will end up inadvertently like being those people for the rest of their lives.
Anyway, we're going to get to our second point at any point.
Our second leak, I'm going to let you take this one because you're the one who's really talked about this, but I'm pretty stoked about this one.
We have started to see some footage that I have absolutely no doubt from what I affectionately term Vernon's very, very bad day.
I'm so excited about this because when we talked about like how would we write the first episode or the first like season of the show, I had said I really wanted to start where the books start.
I agree.
Whereas the films started technically in the end of chapter 1 / beginning of chapter 2. I think it was beginning of chapter 2. It was beginning of chapter 2.
The Deluminator? And that night on Privet Drive, the most unlikely man walked out. And that was the end of chapter 1.
I think wasn't the end of chapter 1 Vernon falls asleep?
Oh, it could be.
I got to go back and check. But in any case, the vast majority of chapter 1 or all of it is skipped.
Right.
And there's reasons to show it, which we'll get into in a sec. But in the footage, we are seeing proof of Vernon's very bad day. And we'll share some pictures as well, but the footage is kind of cool. Again, now the spoiler, if you don't want spoilers, this shows characters interacting, so...
This shows characters in costumes interacting on film. It is undoubtedly a spoiler.
So what are we seeing here?
So in this scene in particular, we are seeing Zaddy Dursley. Or Daddy Dursley, however you prefer to term him. Also, he is simply too thin. We're seeing him with his baked good. I forget what the baked good is. I think it's either a Danish or a croissant. It's specified in the book. I'll comment below. But we see him with his baked good that he got for lunch, and we also see him run into someone very specific.
Daedalus Diggle.
Exactly.
Oh, don't worry. Nothing could make me upset on this happy, happy day. You can see my terrible impression of Daedalus Diggle in our Missing Magical Moments series, where we break down the books and the things that were missing from the books in the films that need to make it into the TV show.
Completely free of charge.
Free of charge.
So in this scene, Vernon runs into Daedalus Diggle. We see sort of, the platform that he's fallen back on because
The crash pad, yeah.
The crash pad, yes. It is a word-for-word retelling of what is exactly in the books in this first chapter that we didn't get in the movies.
A couple of the things that we thought were pretty important about showing this was, one, it allows you to kind of illustrate that mundane muggle life that Vernon lives.
Which you see in this teeny tiny clip that we have here.
Yeah, he's just like doing this, like, I'm in my suit and I bumped into this eccentric man and I just want to get back to my office.
And the eccentric man is teeny tiny and he's wearing the brightest of purples.
Yeah, and a top hat.
And a top hat, obviously.
Yeah. And this would be when he left his office, and there's been all sorts of mischief going on while he's been in his office out his giant window, if he would have turned around to see it. But now he's bumping into the weird people that he saw on the way to work. The other part that this illustrates, other than the fact that he and everything that he represents is mundane and very, very muggle, is that Vernon and the Dursleys at large are who they are from the get-go. Not just because they have to take care of Harry.
Who is a Horcrux.
Yeah, so there's the Horcrux theory about Harry. You tell.
Which I personally believe to be pretty darn viable because...
Tell the theory.
I'm so sorry. In the movies, you just see the Dursleys one day and then they have Harry. And we never see them before they have Harry. Mm-hmm. And they're just miserable, terrible people.
Specifically to Harry.
Specifically to Harry. If you think of someone else that we've seen who has been exposed to a Horcrux.
Ron.
If you see him after he's had some time with a Horcrux, he's also terrible. Yeah. So one would assume that by spending time with a Horcrux, you become a terrible person.
And that is essentially explained in the books in detail. And it's at least alluded to even in the movies when Hermione says,
"Please take the Horcrux. You wouldn't be saying any of this if you hadn't been wearing it all day."
And she's referring to the Horcrux because being in the presence of a Horcrux, which wasn't well enough explained in the movies, but being in the presence of a Horcrux for an extended period of time allows its essentially evil characteristics to sort of seep into you. It starts to prey on your lesser nature.
So 9 or so years seems like enough time for a Horcrux to have taken effect, which would explain why the Dursleys are terrible to Harry at the beginning of the movies.
Now, I had a theory to combat that theory.
Okay.
I did. So my wife and I were actually talking about this the other day. What we suppose is that the soul fragment being contained in a person like Harry, his soul is brunting the effects of it. He, being as good and pure and well-intentioned and everything as he is able to bear the evil of the soul fragment that's in him and is essentially working as a shield to the Dursleys. So why does all that matter? Well, because when we see them prior to, in Vernon's very bad day, we find that Vernon is just kind of a piece of crap. He's just not a good person. Petunia's not a good person. Dudley's not a good baby, even. And I hate to disparage babies, but like negativity all around. No Horcrux to be seen in the Dursley household.
I hate it when he makes a good point. I hate it.
But it's so frequent that you think she'd be used to it.
But I will say that theory makes sense because we see Harry struggling so very often, which might suggest that he's struggling with the piece of Voldemort's soul that's inside of him.
And additionally, we also see him very close to so many other people at Hogwarts, and it has no influence on them. He's very close with Ron.
Yep.
Who is also a very good person, but corrupted by the Horcrux in the locket. He's with Hermione all the time. No influence on her. Presumably, he's with his other Quidditch teammates.
Yep.
No influence on them. It kind
Weasley
of...
family as a whole. Yep.
Yeah,
Okay.
kind of works. In this leaked footage, we get to see glimpses of Vernon's very bad day. We get to see some of the sets where we're going to see him, including the bakery. And I'm just so stoked because I was really insistent that they had to have this in there, and they're going to do it.
Right. So it seems like episode 1 might be done well.
I think so. I still have some questions about how they're pulling off like the very, very beginnings of it. Jasmine and I certainly have a difference of opinion on this. And I don't completely disagree with her take, but...
And I don't completely disagree with his take.
But my thought was, if you literally just read the first couple of pages, there's a lot of exposition and there's a lot of telling who the Dursleys are so they can say like, hey, here's these people, here's the suppositions we want you to have about them. Yes, you can show and not tell some of that stuff, but I think the clarity that narration provides helps you get moving into the story a little bit quicker. So my thought was like, we could be seeing little bits of what's being told. You know, Vernon Dursley was a big beefy man and you see like part of his day happening. And then they say stuff about Petunia being long-necked and craning over fences, and then it kind of cuts to her. And you could even make it funny and do like a whip pan, like a sitcom, or like a, you know, some of the TV shows in the 90s and 2000s would do that. You don't have to, but you could just cut to them.
You guys don't have to do what we say.
Right. You should, but you don't have to.
Exactly.
Now, you could cut to them while there's sort of this third-person omniscient narrator, which I've talked about before, giving you that explanation of these people. And then the story just starts unfolding. And so it just kind of like slides into the story. You could kind of compare it to the beginnings of How I Met Your Mother, if you've ever seen that show. But instead of talking to his kids, the narrator's just talking over the first bits of what you're seeing, and then that just takes over as live action. It's all just happening.
So while I agree that is a viable option, I believe that I could paint these people as terrible people without a narrator.
And to do that, I think you just have to skip that first segment and get into the story.
Right. The very first part of like the actual text in the book is a lot of explanation.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily exposition, it's explanation.
You could say both. I think it's going to be done well. I'm looking forward to it. I'm so happy that they're including it. And that's what I have to say about that.
I think I agree. I just checked. I do agree. And on to more important topics, milady.
Not my lady. There is a rumor floating around. So this isn't so much a spoiler as it is a rumor. And we would invite you very much to weigh in on your thoughts on this aspect, as well as the whole episode, please.
We're also going to share our thoughts. So.
He who must not be named.
She who must not be named.
No, he who must not be named.
No, she who must not be named.
So the problem here is we don't know if it's he or she who must not be named because...
In a previous episode, we talked about how it sounds like They Who Must Not Be Named has been cast. However, there is a...
Cancel for that one.
Absolutely. There is a rumor going around that they may have been auditioning both men and women for the role of Lord/Lady Voldemort.
Yep. Instead of Tom, it's going to be Tammy Voldemort?
Yeah, I was talking about this with someone earlier today, and I don't know how you work. I want to do the lettering of Tammy.
That's one of the things that people are getting stuck on, and I don't disagree with that at all. To back up just for a second, and then we'll get into that point.
Fair. Sorry.
No, that's fine, because that's a very important point. The rumor here comes from Twitter user Daniel RPK, and is not released by any official sources. No official sources have made this statement, but Daniel RPK, who has, albeit a questionable history in terms of leaks, I would cite his leaks about the Superman movie, the new Superman movie, being wildly inaccurate. His spotty record leaves a lot to be desired and leads me to believe that this is probably clickbait and BS. With that said, there's a ton of online creators who are talking about this and like trying to give it some degree of validation. I'm like, dude, they've already cast it. But in fairness, they have not announced who they cast. And that could be for a couple of reasons. It could be because they don't want people to freak out like they did about the Snape casting. And if it's this wild of a deviation, people will lose it. I mean, people already are. I'll be very upset by that. And there's reasons why, which we'll get into in a moment. But I think that's number one. And number two is they want and this is probably the real reason, they want there to be an element of surprise and mystery surrounding the dark wizard that we're going to meet. And so they don't want to announce who it is yet. That's, I think, the more realistic element is like they just want to keep it a mystery until we see them on screen for the first time. And it's like, oh, damn, that's Voldemort.
They use different actors for first Voldemort versus later Voldemort.
And so there's a couple things that are being talked about there too. When we see the flashbacks of James and Willie, if that is in fact what we're seeing, if this is one of the times that they thrice-defied him, he may be in the scene. And so we may see the full embodiment of him in the first season.
Also, if we get the full prophecy, it's possible that we do like a visualization during the full prophecy later in the series.
Yeah.
And so we could see them, but we need to film that now.
Because they need to get him as young as possible.
Exactly.
The other element of that is, so besides seeing him potentially in a flashback, people refer to the fact that like we don't actually see him physically until the 4th book.
Right.
Which is true.
Yep.
We just see him on the back of Quirrell's head. Ralph Fiennes didn't voice that version of Voldemort. They didn't use his facial model superimposed on it. Like nothing.
Right. Ralph
to do
Fiennes
with...
wasn't involved in the project, so
No.
he couldn't have been involved in the first movie.
Whomever is depicting Voldemort for the first movie doesn't have to be the person we end up seeing from the 4th movie on. It could be somebody totally different.
I'd like it to be consistent, but it could be different.
It would be good, I guess, to be consistent because that person can kind of be building their Voldemort persona the entire time. But it doesn't have to be, because with Voldemort not having a fully manifested body, everything could change. Well, I mean, he kind of has a body because he's using Quirrell's body, but everything about him...
But before he was Quirrell's body, wasn't he just like air?
Yeah. Yeah.
So he doesn't have a body. That's Quirrell's body.
Right, but when we
Belongs to
see
Quirrell.
him... we see him manifesting as Quirrell's body, or part of it.
Noted.
So they could do that a bunch of different ways. Obviously, he is going to have to come off the back if they're being book accurate. Where's his voice coming from? Is his voice coming from Quirrell's larynx, which then he would sound like Quirrell, but because he's not necessarily used to his vocal cords, it could sound somewhat different.
He also gets an entirely new set of vocal cords
When he gets a full body.
When he gets a full body.
So even the flashback version of him may not be what he looks like after he builds a new body, because he's literally building a new body.
Huh.
You know, they use multiple different actors to represent him in the movies. One of them was actually Ralph Fiennes', I think, nephew.
In this like Chamber of Secrets?
Yeah. No, not Chamber of Secrets. I think it was the one where he's like, Professor.
I was in the library the other night, in the restricted section, and I read something rather odd about a bit of rare magic.
So there's like this 16-year-old Voldemort that's from the diary.
There's like the 8-year-old Voldemort.
Yeah, and then there's the Voldemort from, I guess he would have been in like his 6th or 7th year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, in any case, they're going to need multiple actors anyways for the different age ranges.
Right.
But the person on his head and even the person in the flashback doesn't have to be the person we finally see.
No.
All that to be said, he a dude. He has to be. And I have very specific reasons why I think you can't gender swap Voldemort.
Well, yeah, Voldemort being the primary problem for me. It's Voldemort.
It's a Lord Voldemort. Well, Voldemort is a made-up name. It's a dumb made-up
It's
name.
a dumb- Okay,
No.
so then Voldemort isn't my problem. It's Tom Marvolo Riddle. That's
Correct.
my problem.
And more specifically, he uses the name Tom Marvolo Riddle to come up with Voldemort. The point being made here is that he does this whole anagram, right? Where he takes his name and he says Tom Marvolo Riddle, and then he goes, whoosh, turns into
Right.
I am Lord Voldemort.
Right.
But it's all the same letters. So you're going to have to do some gymnastics to make that work. And if we start retconning everybody's names and genders, that's shit. Like, don't do that. Just stay to the freaking book.
I agree, stay to the freaking book, but there's so much that has to change. Like, if Voldemort is a girl and then was named after his mother, you can't make the father the magical person. It doesn't work. I've done the math.
I don't know where you're going with that particular explanation, but
Nobody
I'm going to
really
agree with it
needs
anyways.
to.
Yeah.
It doesn't work.
The other problems, aside from just the naming convention, is the fact that there's all the parallels between Harry and Voldemort. Why does that matter? Because, and this may be different for young women, and it may be different for some young men, but I think I can speak for most men in this particular element, in that they were both orphans. They were both sort of withdrawn from the wizarding world despite their pretty important lineage. You know, they're both actually related to the Peverell brothers. They have lineage going back to the Peverell brothers. Pretty important.
Yep.
One of them is related to Salazar Slytherin. The other one is the descendant of, you know, the people who made the Potter Sleek Easy Hair Potion, which is like made them rich. So he had a very affluent family, and they're both half-bloods. And then they're both boys. And everything about them is kind of like...
half-blood.
There he is. Both of his parents are
but that doesn't make him a half-blood. I know that his mom's lineage is not magical, but does that make him a half-blood?
Technically, he falls under the half-blood umbrella.
Okay.
He's not like he's not
umbrella.
a pureblood. It's basically pureblood, half-blood, mudblood. Not my terminology. I'm not throwing the M word around.
You filthy.
But the fact that they're both boys, I think, for Harry specifically, makes that difficult.
Makes it hard to see yourself in Voldemort. Like
No. It makes it hard not to see Voldemort in himself. There are multiple times throughout the story where he sees elements of Voldemort in himself. His ability to speak Parseltongue, his outbursts that he starts happening because of the connection between them, the actual physical connection between them.
And those outbursts might be because Harry's harboring the Horcrux and his soul just gets tired.
Going back to point number 1. There's all these things, and he has all these people encouraging him in his life, Sirius Black. There are moments where, Dumbledore says it's our choices much more than our actions who define who we truly are. And there are moments even where Remus, tries to encourage the good side in him, which then gets thrown back at Remus when he wants to leave his family. My point is, as a young man, comparing yourself to some wicked old witch who killed your parents is a lot different to comparing yourself to another young man who grew up with a very similar upbringing to you in terms of like not being really seemingly wanted, not being in the wizarding world, not being able to explain your past because he didn't know his past at the time, just like Harry didn't. You can see yourself in another boy.
Yeah.
But for him to see himself in a little girl or in a wicked old witch, that's not how guys work. Like guys don't ascribe those characteristics to somebody who's completely... Most guys.
Not trying to overgeneralize here, but I will say,
no, I mean, I'm trying to generalize because there are some things that are generally...
Well, you want the movie
expected.
to appeal to the majority of the population. So I want to, whatever it is that we're doing, to appeal to most of the population. I
just want it to be representative of the book. I don't care who it appeals to. It's just got to be the book. And then, if it is the book, it will appeal to the most people because that's why people are still invested in the franchise, is they loved the books.
I'd like new people to be somewhat invested in the franchise.
Me too, and I think you will get that if you do it right.
But I can also say that, as a young girl, when I was younger, I would very much grow up and say like, oh, I want to be like this specific person. And oftentimes for me, it was a female. Yeah.
And I don't have any position to speak on this, but just in like interactions with my daughter or just interactions I've seen females have with males, I do think it's probably easier for females sometimes to be like, that's a quality that I admire in that man. And I would like to have some of that.
Right.
And I think that's a sign of a good male role model is that like even a young woman is like, that's good behavior. Like that's something I want to emulate. Or at least, if you're talking about like teaching your daughter what to look for in like a husband one day, they look at those characteristics and they kind of internalize them. I don't know that men do that in the same way.
I think that's fair.
So
I can't speak to if men do that, but I do feel like women do that. Or girls. I do that. I think that's natural. Anyways, I just think they can't do Lady Voldemort for so many reasons. There's the logistical issues. There's the whole, like, you'll have to cut scenes or totally change scenes that are important to the story. And it just doesn't work. Yeah. So. And also, he's like, does Harry seem like a badass fighting off some wicked old lady? Woman beating.
Yeah. Kind of
a bad look.
It's like being afraid of the one black professor, beating up on women. Like Harry Potter's a piece of crap if we do this. Like this is not creating good looks for Harry.
That tastes bad.
Yeah.
That tastes really bad. Okay, so I'm going to veto that.
I'm going to veto that too.
We're not doing that.
Stamped.
It's official. It's not, but it is.
Let us know what you think of that particular rumor. Would you be okay with Lady Voldemort?
Okay, I know we've made a pretty strong case for why you wouldn't be. I am open to hearing alternative opinions.
I'm open to hearing them just so I can tell you why you're wrong. No, I'm just kidding. I'm not kidding. I might not say it out loud, but...
Right, exactly. I have my opinion. I'm open to hearing your... Anyway.
One last just sort of quick rumor. Not rumor, announcement?
Announcement. Casting announcement.
Yeah. We did get a casting announcement. Professor...
Vector.
Has been announced.
Vector! Oh, yeah!
Professor Vector is announced, and I actually like the casting choice. I don't know that we get an incredibly detailed description of what Professor Vector looks like anyways.
What does Professor Vector teach?
Do you not know?
Maths.
Arithmancy. Which
maths.
is their maths. I'm interested to see what they do for Professor Sinestra, because she's the astrology teacher, and we actually do get astrology in the books. Like, they go to astrology class, so there's... that's going to be important.
We don't just need astronomy.
I don't remember if actually Harry ever goes to an arithmetic class. We only hear
He
about
doesn't.
Hermione.
Hermione goes.
Yeah.
That was a class you could choose to take.
So I think it's funny that they announced her casting when Harry never goes to her class. Like, I mean, it's good. They're going to be book accurate. In the films, they did have a Professor Vector, and they did have a Professor Sinestra. And we do actually see Sinestra on screen, I think twice. I think in the first movie she's seen at the head table, and then we also see her, and I think it's a different person.
It is.
At the Yule Wall.
I'm going to have to watch.
I'm excited to see the rest of the castings. I don't think arithmancy starts their first year anyways, so that doesn't need to be cast yet. Astrology. I don't think that's the first year, so it doesn't matter anyways. But we want to see them all at the head table.
Well, it does matter because, yes, I'd like to see them all at the head table. I want consistency. I need some semblance of consistency in my life.
It doesn't matter in the sense of them going to the class yet.
Yes.
But we should see them. Surprisingly, we still don't have Arthur Weasley.
Please don't remind me of that.
Don't
remind them of that.
I need to know who's Arthur Weasley. Although we do have Arthur Weasley in the Audible series.
Oh my goodness, we do. The Audible series.
Do you remember who was cast for that? Simon Pegg.
Oh.
Yes. Which is interesting because he's actually already voiced somebody in the Harry Potter franchise. Do you remember that?
No.
Nigellus Black, the headmaster in Hogwarts Legacy.
Oh my goodness.
And I freaking knew he was going to have something to do with the Harry Potter franchise, and I'll be surprised if he doesn't somehow make it up into the movies, because his best friend, Nick Frost, is in the movies. Gosh. So, like, I just knew he was going to be somewhere in it.
Yeah, that absolutely makes sense.
He is too old for Arthur, though.
Yeah, he is too old for Arthur. But I'm very excited for the Audible series. The cast is incredible. Anyway, we are just the kings and queens of tangents this evening. Yes. So thank you so much for joining us this evening for our September news update. Make sure that you comment, like, subscribe, other things that you like to do.
And just let us know what you think of the leaked photos and videos that we shared with you guys. Do you have any problems with Vernon's depiction? He is too thin. You had said that earlier. He is too thin. We are seeing him before he is the Vernon Dursley we know with Harry, so he could get bigger, or they could make him look bigger. Although in the other leaked photos that we shared earlier, he didn't really look much bigger. Share your comments below.
and until then,
keep your wands at the ready.
And stay magical. Finite.